I never liked being home alone at night, but on this particular evening, my discomfort reached a new level. My parents were out of town, and I was left to my own devices in our old, creaky house. The wind howled outside, casting eerie shadows on the walls as the trees swayed in the darkness. The only light in the room was the soft, flickering glow of the TV. Desperate for distraction, I settled in to watch a horror movie. The chilling soundtrack and the suspenseful plot soon had me on edge. But I reassured myself that it was all fiction. Just as the tension in the movie reached its peak, the power went out. I groaned in frustration. The storm outside had taken its toll on the fragile electrical grid of our town. I reached for my phone to use its flashlight, but it was dead, and the charger lay in my darkened room. Feeling my way through the pitch-black house, I stumbled upon the faint glow of a candle in the living room. I sighed in relief. At least I could use it to find my charger. As I entered my room, I found the charger and plugged in my phone. It flickered to life, illuminating the room with its screen's cold blue light. Just as I was about to unplug it, I noticed something strange in the dim light. There were shadows moving on my bedroom wall. I froze, my heart pounding. It was impossible. I was alone in the house. I focused my phone's light on the source of the shadows. I wished I hadn't. In the corner of the room, a grotesque, shadowy figure loomed. It was humanoid in shape, but its proportions were all wrong, elongated limbs and misshapen features. My breath caught in my throat as it slithered closer, its movements unnatural as though it had no bones. I was paralyzed with fear as it drew nearer, its face inches from mine. Hollow, empty eyes bore into my soul. I screamed and scrambled back, the phone falling from my trembling hand. The room plunged back into darkness. I fumbled in the dark, desperately trying to find the charger and my phone. I had to get out of there. Just as my fingers closed around my phone, I heard it again, the whispering. It was a chorus of voices, all speaking in a language I couldn't understand. Panic coursed through me. With my phone's light back on, I discovered that the room was empty. I couldn't understand it. What had I seen? What had I heard? Was it a trick of the dark and my imagination? I clutched my phone tightly, making my way to the living room. The candle had been extinguished. The voices continued, and they seemed to be coming from all around me. I had to leave. I dashed for the front door, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if it had been sealed shut. Desperation set in as I began to realize that I was trapped, surrounded by these unnerving whispers. I retreated to the kitchen, my heart racing. As I looked out the window, I saw the trees outside moving, their branches curling in strange patterns. A ghastly face appeared, pressed against the glass. It was the same face from my room, twisted and nightmarish. Its eyes, white and empty, stared into my soul. I stumbled backward, my back colliding with something cold and metallic. The refrigerator. I reached for the fridge door, and to my horror, it was ice cold to the touch. I swung it open, and a rush of frigid air engulfed me, filling the room with an unnatural chill. The voices grew louder, converging on me, drowning out my thoughts. My surroundings started to blur and distort. I was pulled into the icy abyss of the fridge, a bone-chilling darkness swallowing me whole. It felt as if I was falling, spiraling into an endless void. And the whispers of the shadows echoed in my ears until I couldn't hear anything else. The next morning, my parents returned to find the house empty, the power restored, and their child vanished without a trace. They never did find out what had happened that night. But I know the truth. The house wasn't empty. It was filled with shadows, whispers, and something sinister beyond comprehension, waiting for its next victim. My heart raced as I watched my parents' taillights disappear around the corner, leaving me alone in our old, isolated farmhouse. They had gone to a family emergency, and I had been left behind to keep an eye on the place. It was a moonless night, and the only light came from a flickering lamp in the living room. As I settled into the creaky sofa, a subtle unease settled over me. The wind howled outside, whispering secrets that the house seemed to harbor. I tried to dismiss my fears, telling myself it was just the age of the place, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I decided to distract myself by watching TV, hoping to drown out the creeping silence. The eerie sounds of a horror movie filled the room, and the flickering light of the screen cast dancing shadows on the walls. I nestled deeper into the sofa, trying to forget the unsettling atmosphere. Just as I began to lose myself in the movie, a sudden chill washed over me. I pulled the blanket tightly around me and glanced around the dimly lit room. It was then that I noticed the shadows on the wall moving independently, as if they had a life of their own. My heart began to race, and I grabbed the remote to pause the movie, but it didn't respond. The TV continued to play, and the shadows in the room grew darker and more pronounced. They seemed to be forming strange, unnatural shapes. Whispers filled the air, faint at first, like the distant rustling of leaves. I strained to hear them, wondering if it was just the wind playing tricks on my ears. But the whispers grew louder, more distinct. It was as though they were emanating from within the very walls of the house. I took a deep breath and called out, "Who's there?" Silence. The whispers stopped, and the room was still. I was about to dismiss it as my imagination when I heard my name, soft and haunting, carried on the invisible breath of the night. Sarah. My heart pounded in my chest as I scanned the room, searching for the source of the voice. I had no reason to believe I was home alone, yet the house appeared empty. The whispers returned, this time more forceful, more demanding. They echoed in my head, and I realized that they were coming from the basement. I had no choice but to investigate. I had to know what was down there. Cautiously, I made my way to the basement door, my trembling hand on the door knob. It felt cold, almost alive under my touch. The whispers continued, growing more insistent, more sinister. The basement stairs creaked with every step I took. The dim light from the single bulb at the bottom of the staircase revealed a room filled with old furniture covered in dusty sheets. The whispers now surrounded me, and I strained to understand the words. It was a language I didn't recognize, filled with dread and malice. As I descended, I noticed a shape moving beneath one of the sheets. Slowly, I reached out and pulled it away. My breath caught in my throat, and my heart stopped. A mirror. An old, ornate mirror that I had never seen before. In its reflective surface, I saw the room behind me, but something was off. The whispers grew louder, and the room around me began to distort and contort, as if it were alive. And then I saw it. My reflection. But it wasn't me. My eyes were hollow, my skin pale and stretched taut over bone. The mirror showed a version of me, twisted and tormented, imprisoned within its sinister frame. I stumbled back, away from the mirror. And as I did, I heard the whispers grow louder still. They were not coming from the basement anymore. They were all around me, inside me. The very walls seemed to be closing in, threatening to consume me. Terrified, I ran up the basement stairs and slammed the door behind me. But the whispers did not stop. They followed me through the house, enveloping me in a relentless cacophony of voices that I could not escape. My parents had left me alone for the night, promising they'd be back by midnight. I settled in on the living room couch with a stack of books, determined to distract myself from the growing unease that came with being home alone. The night was pitch black, and the wind howled outside, making the old house feel like it had its own voice, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. I tried to lose myself in the pages of my book, the only source of light in the room coming from a dim lamp. But every time the wind rattled the windows, my heart skipped a beat. Around 10 p.m. I heard something outside, a scratching sound at the back door. I paused, listening intently. The scratching grew more insistent, like something or someone was trying to get in. My pulse quickened, and I tiptoed to the kitchen, my flashlight in hand. I shone the beam through the window onto the back porch. My breath caught in my throat as the light revealed a shadowy figure hunched over the door. It was emaciated and seemed almost inhuman. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stifle a gasp. What could that thing be? The scratching ceased, and the figure turned to face the window, its eyes gleaming with an unnatural, malevolent light. I stumbled backward and rushed to the front door, my trembling hands fumbling with the locks. I needed to get out, to run, to find help. But as I flung open the door, a wall of darkness enveloped me, an abyss that seemed to swallow me whole. I was no longer in my home. I stood in a desolate, otherworldly landscape, the sky above a blood-red hue. The creature that had been at the back door stood a few feet away, its limbs elongated and grotesque. Its hollow eyes bore into me, and it grinned, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. I turned and ran, stumbling through the surreal, nightmarish terrain. The ground shifted beneath my feet, and the air was filled with eerie whispers. The creature pursued me, moving with an uncanny, jerky gait. In the distance, I saw a flicker of light, a glimmer of hope. I sprinted toward it, my breath ragged. The light turned out to be a dilapidated cabin, its windows glowing with an eerie, greenish light. Desperation urged me inside. The cabin was like something out of a twisted fairy tale. The walls were adorned with grotesque, faceless masks, and eerie symbols adorned the floor. The whispers grew louder, and I realized they were coming from the masks themselves, like trapped souls crying out for release. My flashlight flickered and died, leaving me in total darkness. Panic set in, and I stumbled around the cabin, trying to find a way out. The whispers in the masks grew louder and more frantic, echoing in the enclosed space. I felt their presence closing in on me, suffocating. Just as I was about to give in to despair, I heard a voice, faint but distinct, calling my name. It was my mother. I followed the sound and found myself back in the living room of our home. My parents had returned, and I was safe. I tried to explain what had happened, but they dismissed it as a nightmare. They didn't understand the horror I had experienced, the sinister creature at the back door, and the eerie cabin in the otherworldly landscape. The memory of that night still haunts me, and I can't shake the feeling that the creature and the surreal cabin were more than just a nightmare. They were a glimpse into a malevolent dimension, a place of darkness and whispers, and they may not be done with me yet. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to smash that like button and subscribe for more scary horror stories. See you on the flip side.